Hello everyone, welcome back to another Tuesday Talks video. I'm Ariana, aka the wellness student. Every Tuesday I do a Tuesday Talks segment where I delve into a nutrition topic and quite in depth, and we just have a little chat basically. Today we're actually going to be talking about a topic that I've been wanting to cover for a really long time, and considering our circumstances at the moment with the coronavirus pandemic going on, I thought it was quite fitting to discuss it now. So with the COVID-19 pandemic going on, I feel like it's exemplified multiple issues that we have revolving around food availability, food insecurity, and also the provision of healthy and nutritious meals. And for some groups of people, they're more vulnerable to these issues. So for that purpose today, we are going to talk about malnutrition in the UK with a focus on elderly adults. With over 3 million adults over the age of 65 who are either already malnourished or at risk for malnutrition, it poses a huge challenge in the UK that we really need to tackle and maybe focus more on preventative measures. There's people suffering, so it's something that we definitely need to discuss. Okay, what is malnutrition? So there's certain criteria to determine whether or not someone is malnourished. So malnutrition is either characterized if someone has a BMI less than 18.5, which is underweight, or unintentional weight loss of 5 to 10% of their body weight over a period of 3 to 6 months. Also, you can have a BMI under 20 paired with unintentional weight loss of 5 to 10% of body weight over a period of 3 to 6 months. That can also determine if someone is malnourished, and that can also determine if someone is at risk for malnutrition. We actually use a 5-step screening tool called the MUST tool, Malnutrition Universal Screening Tool, and it's a 5-step system where we just go through certain steps to determine basically if a person is malnourished and also what level of risk that they sit at. But to basically sum it up, it's a condition or a state where someone is not receiving adequate nutrition to meet their nutritional demands or requirements at their age that they need for the body to function normally and maintain the normal states of the body. If we think about nutritional status, it's basically the balance between energy and demand, and you want those both to be in balance. And what happens in malnutrition, particularly in undernutrition, is that the supply isn't meeting the demand, which then can cause adverse health effects. This can lead to a progressive decline in health, the cognitive and physical state of someone, increased risk of infections, and also increased risk of mortality. There's actually various different types of malnutrition. We have undernutrition, so that's being underweight, not getting enough micronutrients, macronutrients from the diet. So aside from adults who have a low BMI, we can get wasting, so a low weight for height, and this is normally caused by acute undernutrition. We also have stunting, so that's a low height for age, and that's mainly due to chronic undernutrition, mainly during the infancy stages, so growing up, those key stages in development. And actually stunting can promote obesity later in life if those individuals later in life consume a diet with excess energy. And actually, contrary to popular belief, you can actually be malnourished if you are receiving overnutrition. So those who might be severely obese with a focus on high fat sugar foods, they might not be receiving those micronutrients that they really need for their body to function properly. We often see overnutrition and undernutrition in developing countries, and we actually call this the overburden of malnutrition, where you basically see both ends of the spectrum, one extreme to the other, and this causes a huge impact on health infrastructures because you're having to deal with two at once. So next, let's talk about the causes of malnutrition. There are so many causes that malnutrition can be attributed to, from eating a poor diet, digestive disorders such as Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, to medication, to eating disorders, and also healing from an injury as well. For the purpose of this video, we're going to hone in on the ones that might apply to elderly populations and increase their risks for developing malnutrition. As an individual ages, there are certain changes that the body undergoes. The first is a decrease in energy expenditure, so you're not using up as much energy. The BMR, so your basal metabolic rate, changes because you've got a reduction in mobility, body composition changes as well, so there's less demand for energy through food. But that doesn't mean that micronutrient requirements change for older adults. They still need to be obtaining sufficient amounts of micronutrients through their diet to support their normal body functioning. And there's quite a lot of changes that can affect this as you age. A couple changes, for example, are physiological. So we have changes in the gut structure, and this might attenuate the ability to absorb nutrients, meaning that the body can't synthesize them and metabolize them efficiently. We also see an increase in impairments of mobility as we age. So that might mean that people are less likely to go to the shops, choose what foods they eat. Also, the inability to move around and cook foods. Often, cognitive disorders are associated with an increased age, so developing disorders such as Alzheimer's and dementia, and this can play a huge role in food intake. This can majorly impact one's nutritional status because they might be forgetting to eat, food is not a priority to them, and they might not even think about eating, and the importance of eating to fuel their body might be a bit lost. And actually, malnutrition and also cognitive diseases such as dementia and Alzheimer's, they go hand in hand. It's a bi-directional causal relationship, because malnutrition can lead to cognitive decline can lead to malnutrition. It's a really important factor to consider when we think about malnutrition in elderly adults. We also often see a loss of appetite and a longer satiety. There's a term, it's called anorexia of aging. That basically means the reduction of food intake in older adults, and this actually can impact up to 15 to 30% of the older generations. This loss of appetite could actually be attributed to chemical changes within the body. So specifically, hormones can change. There's two hormones in particular that we know change and vary along the life course and affect the appetite. So cholecystokinin, CKK, is a hormone responsible for satiety and also gastric emptying. So when it's secreted in larger amounts, as it is in elderly adults, it basically slows that gastric emptying, meaning that the feeling of fullness is there. So that might play a part in appetite. Another hormone called ghrelin, known as the hunger hormone, is actually reduced in older adults, and that basically suppresses the feeling of being hungry. So as we age, we also get changes in the senses, and this is called agnosia, the inability to interpret sensory information. We have olfactory senses, so your smell, and also gustatory senses, so your taste, and these both naturally decline as we age, meaning food isn't as palatable, desirable to eat, and also leads to decreased food enjoyment. Okay, now let's think about the environmental causes of malnutrition in elderly populations. Probably the most obvious one is consuming a poor diet, a very simple diet, not getting enough variety, essentially not getting the macro and micronutrients that you require for your body to function normally. Reduced appetite is a large factor, and actually social factors can come into it as well. As I said previously, medication that can induce nausea, vomiting, repressed appetite, and also affect taste and smell senses, so food isn't as desirable. Social isolation is a huge factor that plays a massive role in malnutrition. The lack of social interaction can lead to depression, which then can affect the appetite. Not only that, those with a lack of social interaction are losing those positive social cues to eat, and also those commensal eating times that they probably once had. So that can actually reduce food intake. Also, people that are older are associated with reduced incomes, so there's less chance of buying maybe those foods higher in micronutrients that are actually perceived as being more expensive, such as fresh fruit and vegetables, and those people might actually opt for foods that are lacking in nutritional content, such as tinned food, biscuits, bread, those cheaper options. As I said previously, there are so many factors that can play a role in malnutrition, and these are only a few that we commonly see in an older population. Now let's get on to what malnutrition might lead to. When we think of older adults and malnutrition, we might see sarcopenia, which is basically the loss of muscle mass. because not moving as much, and also the lack of protein that's being ingested. Also frailty, so that's tiredness, weight loss. If both of those are quite extreme, it can actually lead to the disablement of someone, leading to quite a poor quality of life. It also affects mobility and risks of falling, and basically just reflects a huge decline in strength, endurance, and also reduced physiological function. Next we have cachexia, which is basically severe weight loss. It essentially means the body is becoming wasted, so you're really losing all that weight. It can lead to severe chronic illness. Malnutrition is also associated with the inability to fight off infections. So those with a poor nutritional status, not getting those micronutrients that they need for their immune system. This massively increases their risks of developing infections such as pneumonia and sepsis. And also wound healing is impaired as well, so that can actually increase infection risk as well. These are just a couple things that malnutrition can lead to. There is so many other things. Again, I'm just kind of mentioning the main ones that we associate in older adults. Let's think about then how we prevent malnutrition in older adults. Once we spot those initial signs of weight loss, how can we prevent someone from becoming malnourished? Because we often see a reduced appetite in those who are older, we often advise small and frequent meals, but with a focus on nutrient-dense foods. So potatoes, bananas, nuts, blueberries, eggs, what else? Kale, getting your greens in there as well. Getting a balance of carbs, protein and fats is really key to meet your macronutrient target, but also those nutrient-dense foods will help to achieve your micronutrient requirements. Alongside focusing on small frequent meals, it's also advised to focus on energy-dense snacks, so snacks like nuts, bananas, just to maintain that energy level intake throughout the day and help increase the macro and micronutrient intake throughout the day. Fortified foods are a great way of getting extra micronutrients. So for example, cereals and bread are often fortified with extra micronutrients such as vitamin D. And vitamin D is key, we'll get onto that. Buying fortified foods is a great method of increasing micronutrient intake, especially for those at an older age. Those with oral deteriorations might benefit from eating foods that have been modified in their textures. Softer foods like yogurt, they might have a larger focus on pureed foods instead of eating whole foods. Next is encouraging the use of herbs and spices. We talked about how the senses might become quite dull as you age, so encouraging the use of herbs and spices, which might actually provide a health benefit as well. That can actually help to increase food enjoyment. Vitamin D is quite often supplemented because when we think about an older population, maybe there's reduced mobility, can't get outside as much, and also there's changes in the skin, which actually means the skin is less efficient at absorbing that vitamin D from the sunlight, synthesizing it and using it within the body. So it's quite often advised in older adults to supplement vitamin D 10 milligrams a day, just to make sure that you're getting enough of that nutrient. Vitamin D is often the main one. I know there's loads of other nutrients, but it's very much on an individualized basis. So maybe a person getting a blood test, seeing what they're lacking, and then choosing the correct course of supplements to ensure that they're getting enough. And actually increasing exercise, so going out for a walk, maybe doing some chair exercises. Research has suggested that this might stimulate appetite so that they're more likely to eat more, and also it has so many other added benefits such as improving mobility, balance and decreasing the risk of falling. Okay, I think I have covered everything that I've wanted to. I think the take-home message is that look out for your elderly family and friends. If you spot any signs of malnutrition, consult their doctors. See what you can do about it. Aside from that, I think I'm gonna end this video now because I don't want it to be as long as my other one, and I hope you maybe learned something. I hope maybe this might prompt you to do some shopping for your elderly family and friends, and yeah, just look out for each other, be safe, and I shall see you next week. Bye.